Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited for today's episode because it has everything to do with sales. And actually, I was part of a sales program for the better part of 18 months between 2020 and 2021. And I had this sales coach. And so basically, today's episode is going to take everything that she said and it's going to flip it on its head. So I'm going to start with the very first point, which I kind of already touched on. And I want to be so real with you right now. I get the ick around sales so frequently because of that horrible experience that I had with that sales mentor that I hired back in Really funny. I was actually part of a group program in the summer of 2020, and that was her podcast where I actually found this mentor, and I started kind of like just talking to her once or twice, maybe over Instagram. Basically, it was just like, I listened to the podcast. I was like, hey, thank you to my coach from that point in time for featuring so-and-so on this podcast. It was great to listen about how you go about sales online, like sales in the online space, right? And so that was in the summer of 2020. And I wound up hopping on a Zoom call with that sales coach, and she was part of a network marketing company at the time. It was a mental health network marketing company, and I was like, okay, yeah, this will probably definitely help me. I'm definitely really passionate about mental health. I was, going through quite a bit myself at the time. I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And so that was where we kind of met. And then, she had this program and she was going to be part of this mastermind and I was going to be part of the same mastermind, and you should join my program to help you with sales. And it was just, when I look back on it, it was really icky. Everybody in that mastermind that I joined was like selling to each other, and it was fucking gross. Like, just fucking gross. Okay. And I didn't really know any better because I was at the beginning of my journey. And it turns out, even to this day, I'm still connected with a bunch of the people who were in that mastermind. It was just really, it was not the experience that I was anticipating from the way that it was marketed and the way that other people talked about it. So I was like, when it did start to happen and when other people were pitching me in that mastermind, I was kind of like, ew, gross. So I joined her group program because I was like, I only watched my father build an entire recycling empire with my uncles and my grandfather. I know nothing about sales. And it was funny because I was like, yeah, I don't really have any sales skills. And the only reason why I believed that I even had no sales skills to begin with was because I had a very hard time hopping on the phone and making a cold call when I would go work over the summer with my father at my father's company. And I was terrified of making cold calls, and I was terrified of hopping on the phone with people and like selling them something that I didn't know that they would even want. And so when she came along with this sales course, I was like, yeah, okay, I definitely can see myself struggling with sales. I would like to learn a little bit more. And so I signed up for her original group program, and I wound up later on investing in her mastermind. I made it wasn't even a digital product. It was an e-commerce product. It was a physical product that I sold online. And then I wound up working with some people who were really big names online. They were my clients. And then I wound up creating a group program, and that went really well. I sold 12 seats out of the 10 spots that I had available, learned a big lesson there, run a wait list. And then after that, what wound up happening was I went to the retreat that we had in Sedona, Arizona, and I started to get known for something entirely different, where I was known for my TikTok account. My TikTok had blown up over the course of all of that time. And so people started coming to me about video marketing, and So I was like, yeah, I can help you, because that was literally what I was doing with TikTok. And there was a point where I hopped on a Zoom call with her and she was like, I have no idea what you do. Like, you do these notebooks, you do this group program, you have this code, you talk about TikToks. Like, I don't know what you do. I was like, what does it matter? All of these things are connected. I'm running a business, right? Like, what does it matter? And then I was a co-coach in the next round of her mastermind, and things just fell apart so fast. And by October of 2021, it was like our entire friendship, we were so close. Our entire friendship was just, it was gone in an instant because of money. And so whenever I think of sales, I really have this huge block around sales, in all honesty. And I still to this day get the ick. And the funny thing is that last year in my current position, because I do still have a 9-to-5, I made over $650,000 worth of sales. So it's like, well, I didn't use any of that information that I learned and I spent and I put all this money into on my credit cards. I didn't use any of that. I used me. I used my personality. I used my being, who I am on like a me level. And that helped me make almost $800,000. I think when I did the numbers at the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024, it was like $757,000, 800 and change. It was like an insane amount of money that I made sales. And I was like, okay, I can make sales. This is entirely possible. What is the difference between making sales in person and online? Because that is the bigger differentiator here. And so oftentimes when I go into my stories now online on Instagram, or if I'm selling something on my podcast even, or like even on my YouTube, there's a few NLP tools that I actually end up using when I go to make a sale, or when I go to market, or when I go to advertise about what I have to offer. And like, marketing is kind of like meh, because marketing is really just like how you get people into your world and expose them to what it is that you do, right? So it does somewhat have to play with the sales. It's also more about reaching people and creating and fostering a relationship with people is my view on marketing. Anyways, I want to stick on the topic here. There are a few NLP tools that I use when I am going to make sales. The first thing that I do is I create a reframe for myself. I'm not doing the same thing that she did to me. I am actually providing people a service. I'm actually offering something to these people that it's like something that they need. I have actually solved this problem for myself, and I'm offering it to others as a solution for them. So I really find myself in this more or less detachment phase from like, it has nothing to do with me. I'm going to take the focus off of myself. I'm going to reframe it to essentially look at it as, I've solved this for myself. I'm putting it out there for people to learn. And if people are interested, then they can purchase. That simple. Take it off of myself, because when you take the pressure off of yourself, it becomes a lot easier to sell. So for example, when I go into my job and I'm making these sales, I'm making sales of a product, okay? I'm making sales of a physical product, and it's like 240, anywhere between 150 and 240 pieces at a time. And so when I go to make the sales of this product, it's not about me. It's about this person needs to be able to take the material and put it into the product that I have. How can I best help them? How can I best serve them? It's got nothing to do with me. When you go into creating your own business, then what you do is you start to make it about you. That's the ego. That's your ego coming in hot. And your ego is like, oh yeah, this is about me. It's going to bring me money. It's going to bring me. Wrong. It's not about you. And as soon as you could take the focus off of you when you go to create your products, when you go to create your services, that's when you're going to start to see sales flying in. So I'm going to use another example. For a really long time, I was doing video marketing because this mentor told me to go in that direction because I went viral. I was doing video marketing because other people kept telling me I was really good at video marketing. I kept creating TikTok accounts and they kept going viral, right? Wrong. Because to me, the views, the comments, the shares, the likes, any kind of statistic had to do with a reflection about myself. And so my ego was very tied in with video marketing. Whereas now, when I'm talking about NLP, when I'm talking about finances, when I'm talking about astrology, when I'm talking about human design, these things are not connected to me. They're tools that I have used. They're tools that I have learned. They're tools that I help other people with, and that has no reflection or barrier on me. The difference is that it is no longer personal. It's, hey, I've come to learn how to use this here. Are you interested in learning how to use it too? Keep in mind, the word is it, okay? So let's just take astrology, for example. Hey, I've learned about astrology. Would you like to learn about astrology too? It's got nothing to do with me. Astrology as a tool for other people. That's it. That's the service. The service is, here's astrology. This is a tool. Here's how you can use it. Boom. It's got nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. Because it's not about me. It's about the person who I'm helping. Take yourself out of the equation. Reframe it. You're going to be good. That's the first tool. Second tool, single belief change. Going through a single belief change in NLP has been absolutely incredible. To work on one of the limiting beliefs that you have to essentially put yourself in a totally different trajectory is incredible. So, for example, this particular mentor had this belief that you can only talk about one thing in your content. And so naturally, what happened? I took on the belief that I can only create content around one topic. And I had to corner myself into talking about one thing all of the time. And what wound up happening was I had this battle internally of like, well, I can't just talk about one topic. If I talk about one topic, I'm going to make myself mad. Like I'm literally going to drive myself insane. And what happened when I talked about video marketing all the time? It didn't go anywhere because I was feeling resistance. I felt cornered in. I felt like I couldn't be me. I felt like I couldn't talk about things that I enjoyed. I felt like I couldn't expand myself. And so I actually walked through a single belief change with a partner in my NLP cohort. And when she took me through the single belief change, the biggest piece that I took out of it was that when I go into creating content, I want to go into creating content as if I'm focused on a race. I know this makes no sense at all, but I'm going to explain it really fast. I am a rower. I am an athlete. I love racing. I had an undefeated season in 2019, and you better believe that I am so down to hop in a boat and race in an instant. You say it, I'm down. Actually, I just got a text message. You heard the bing earlier in the recording that an open row is going to be open for tomorrow at 8 a.m. And so she brought me through this single belief change, and the belief that I tied my content to is similar to that of going into a race, being focused, having a race plan, knowing exactly how to execute my race, knowing how to exactly execute my content. What am I looking at right now? I'm looking at my bullet points on my Notion board because I'm going in with intention. I'm going in with a purpose. I'm going in with, hey, this is what I want to cover. This is what I want for people to get out of this episode. And that is going to shine through. all of that energy came from a single belief change exercise with one of the women in my cohort. That was incredible. And now when I go into my podcast episodes, I'm all about it. Maybe there's a couple podcast episodes with some guests that I'm a little like tangential and a little squirrely. And I think that's mostly because I have new people on the podcast and they have different perspectives, and I want to include basically more of like a conversational type of podcast episode. And I still have a rough outline of how I go through the guest episodes. When I go in with intention, when I go in with a race plan into my content, I could talk about astrology and it wouldn't even matter, because you would still learn and you would still understand how astrology has everything to do with how you're going to make money in your business. So that's the second tool. The third tool that I actually have been using, and it's really difficult to do on myself, it's easier when other people do it to me, is flip the script techniques. Some people will call these different names, but more or less you kind of go on a journey on your own timeline and you visit places in your past or in past lives or throughout the generations of your ancestral history, and you go back to these points in times and you work through certain emotions, and you work through certain limiting beliefs that might have popped up while you were growing up, right? So this one's really powerful, and this is truly, when you can take this technique and you can use it on yourself, that is self-coaching to the extremo max. So when I go back to the crux and the root of it all, what happens is I will start to release trapped emotions or to rewire limiting beliefs throughout my timeline. And what that does, in the case of, let's just say, a limiting belief, right? What that does is it allows for me to dance with that limiting belief instead of allowing for that limiting belief to have a hold over me. So it allows for me to recognize, oh yeah, when I go to create content, this little voice starts to pop up. And when that voice starts to pop up, how can I dance with it instead of resist it? Because if I resist it, it persists. Whereas if I dance with it, how can I include astrology while still getting to the point of talking about money? How can I include NLP while still getting to the point about how it has to do with money? How can I include human design while still getting to the point of how it has to do with generating revenue and money? All of these things, how can I dance with them? Because I was just listening to a podcast from one of my mentors today, and she was talking about how you dance with your limiting beliefs. And I always thought that it was new level, new devil, as in every time you level up, you have a different limiting belief to work through, as if they change. And when I heard that podcast this morning, I was like, oh, I get it. It's not that your limiting beliefs change. The beliefs actually stay the same. What changes is how you work with the belief. And when she said how you dance with them, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense. It's actually how you dance with your beliefs versus new level, new devil. New level, new devil, it created a picture in my mind of like, okay, when I take the next step, there's a new thing that pops up. No, there isn't anything new. Everything is already encoded in you. What is different is how you work through it, how you work with it, how you use it to your advantage. So I wanted to cover that for you today because I feel like all of those things, those tools have been so helpful for me when it comes to working through specific feelings when it comes to sales, because I've been doing a lot of market research lately, and I'm not going to lie, one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest hurdles for so many of the entrepreneurs who I've been doing market research with is sales. How do I show up without feeling the ick? I don't like when I have to say this. I don't like promoting that. It doesn't make me feel good when I go onto my stories and I talk about this. I always feel weird when I have to go on camera and I have to talk about that. Okay, don't do it. I know it sounds simple. And when I say don't, that's not what you hear because your brain doesn't hear negatives. And it's a simple, quick fix. What makes you feel good? What allows for you to feel like you are serving people? What opens you up versus closing you off? Something to think about. Also, I'm going to put this in here because I'm on a rant right now. I want to talk about the Fire Sign audio bundle. It's lit. It's lit. You're going to love it. It is for my Leos, Sagittarius, Aries. It is mainly for the sun signs. However, all of these energies are found throughout our chart. There's going to be instances where if you know that your fire signs are in certain houses, then it's going to light up your fire signs, and you can use that to your advantage. So just want to remind you, Fire Sign audio is coming out. It's going to be out mid to the end of July, I think. So be sure to grab your Fire Sign audio. Last thing that I want to put in here, finances are a double-edged sword, especially for entrepreneurs, because it requires you as an entrepreneur to both make money and feel good about selling and making sales, as well as manage your money, because you need to also consider creating a safe space for the money to be held. Okay, there's two sides to this coin, and we're going to be covering just today. We're going to be covering just the one side because y'all, I can go on a rant on the other side because it is so important. I legitimately right now was just thinking of an example of that sales mentor who would literally DoorDash all of her food all of the time. It was $700 a month, and that's an unnecessary expense. Okay. We can get into this in a different episode for a different day. Ultimately, the main goal that I'm looking to achieve is that you see sales differently. They really are not sleazy. And the reason why your mind goes to that is because of what other people have modeled to you. That, and your mind gets caught up on the ideology of those stories because we're humans, and stories are what stay with us. As soon as you create a story, it exists. All right. The other big thing that I wanted to do in this episode was to provide for you a few quick strategies that you can use when you go to make sales. Quick, easy reframe. Okay. I know it might, when I say it, it's like, oh yeah, quick, easy reframe. It might take some time in the beginning for you to find what it is and how it's going to be best effective for you to reframe something. And that's okay, because you get to spend time with yourself and you get to spend time with what works for you. The other two, the single belief change and the flip the script, those are going to be something a little bit more, you're going to find them a little bit more from someone who is an NLP mentor or coach. You could literally, I have a bundle. If you're interested, we could walk through those two strategies together. You're going to get a little bit more help in those two areas from someone who is certified in NLP, and they're still really effective, very effective methods. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said that. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to encourage you to leave a review. You could take a screenshot, share your takeaways with me on Instagram, because I want to know. I want to know what you found valuable out of this episode, and I want to hear from you. Let's connect. I want to thank you for tuning in, and we will talk very soon.